think we're live. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Anyone can hear me? Just push 1. All right, got a confirmation. Thank you for the confirmation. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 439. Black blockchain talk. Please hit the like button as you come in, share the video if possible. Hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, including those posted on the community tab. Document description beneath the video for you to follow along with. If you want to engage in discussion, there'll be a link in the chat. Click on the link, raise your hand, so one of us can acknowledge you and bring you onto the panel. This should be pretty quick, should not take long. Let me get started with the first item on the docket. Interesting. All right, this is from CompTIA.org, and this is a blockchain decision tree. So this will determine whether or not blockchain is the right distributed database that you should be chosen for your application. And so let me just read off the caption first. So we also have Cocaine Kells on the panel. How are you doing, Cocaine?
I'm all right, and yourself?
All right. Let me expand this out. Blockchain is a powerful, innovative database technology for transparent, permanent data keeping, useful for a multitude of use cases and scenarios. But it's not the best fit for every environment. Determining whether or not blockchain would be optimal for a specific situation can be challenging and complex question to answer. With many variables to consider, the answer often is, it depends. To help you decide if blockchain is the right choice for your customer environment, CompTIA's Blockchain Advisory Council has created a visual decision tree and infographic to guide users down a number of paths to help determine if blockchain or another solution would work best. So let's just go over this real quick. You can actually download this. This is in the description beneath the video. So expand this out just a little bit. So the first is there a need for a trusted central authority? Yes or no? If no, then you skip to question 2. Is there a need for high performance, over 1,000 transactions per second? That's what TPS stands for. If no, go to 3. Is there a need to capture massive amounts of data? If no, go to 4. Do one or more parties need to be able to modify entries? If no, go to 5. Is there a need for a persistent historical transaction record? If no, go to 6. Do multiple parties need to be able to access or audit data? So they're talking about immutable. If no, go to 7. Are contractual relationships or value exchange being managed? If no, go to 8. Can business process be represented by conditional logic? If no, go to 9. Is there a need to centrally own application functionality? If no, go to 10. And 10 is, can transactions be public but hashed? It's an interesting question too, because that throws a monkey wrench into a lot of things. But if you go backwards, let's go to yes, because yes will then determine, actually, let's stick with the we'll stick with 10. Can transactions be public but hashed? So regardless if you answer yes or no, the summary is the summary question is under 30 transactions per second. Okay. And if so, then, or if no, then hybrid or permission might work. So what they're talking about is the configuration of the blockchain, whether private or public, will determine it. So hybrid means that some may have access, others may not. Permission means, only the selected people will have access, no one else will. And so a permission blockchain would be proper for enterprises, large organizations. Hybrid would mean that there's some shared responsibility between ownership. And public means that it's available to everyone. So going back through this, 11 goes to 12. Is there a specialized workload that will be determined by 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5? And 13, is the data structured? So is the data structured or not? If data being structured means, has it been categorized? Has it been cataloged? Has it been classified? Is there data classifications that apply to it? What happens with data, generally when it gets collected, it gets put into what we call a lake. Data inside of a lake is just a big pool of data. But if it's structured, then you have something like data warehousing. And now you have categories, classifications for data that makes it easier to sift through. It makes it even faster to actually process. So if it's structured, then it goes to 14. Is there a need to scale for size or performance? So if you need to scale for size or performance, a distributed cloud RDBMS, a real-time or relational database management system, is what will be needed. For performance reasons, you would go with a traditional single server or clustered RDBMS. So this is actually a really good graphic. And I think you can actually use this to determine whether or not whatever project you're working on will determine if blockchain is the right solution for you, or maybe you should go with a traditional database. But traditional databases are actually becoming a lot more hybridized too. You're starting to see like Couch, Mongo, all of those sort of databases being put inside containers, like Kubernetes, not Kubernetes, Docker, and things like that, are actually becoming a lot just as robust as blockchain or distributed ledger technology. Slowly but surely, and I think at some point you're going to have the lines are going to be blurred. So this is actually really good. Let me go through this again. Okay, there's nothing else behind it. So this is in the description beneath the video. So I think anybody who wants to get into blockchain, this would actually be a good primer from a consultancy standpoint. All right, let me get to the next item on the docket. What is this?
How are you doing, Mike?
Oh, good. And yourself? is this thing? Something's not right here. Oh, they took this. Oh man, they took the page down. Damn. All right. Get to the last item on the docket. I don't know why they took that one down. All right. Next item on the docket and last item on the docket will be data from dataeconomy.com. A mass flood of blockchain in Africa. The economic growth effects stem from blockchain on the continent. Expand this out. This is really tiny. Africa has projected to be one of the world's great growth regions in the coming decades, and its population doubles to 2 billion over the next several decades. Its GDP has been predicted to increase from $2 trillion today to $29 trillion by 2050. One of the youngest populations in the world, with 2/3 of their population under the age of 24, Africa is also home of the world's fastest growing mobile market, with 3/4 of the population owning a mobile device. Dr. Chris Clevery, founder of Made in Africa Foundation and current CEO of blockchain specialist firm Kamari, tells Abigail Opaya that the answer is simple: to stay one step ahead of the expanding economy. Blockchain improvements in data collection, organization, and institutional integrity are crucial if African countries are to reach their full potential. By using blockchain technology to digitize information, the issues surrounding information mismanagement can be overcome. He believes that this alone could further assist with restoring trust in public institutions and corporations, a critical component of stabilizing economies. How does Africa's young population have a direct knock-on effect on the use of blockchain in Africa? 400 million people in Africa are under the age of 24, which makes it one of the largest populations that for that age demographic. With a booming population that skews younger and one that is more tech literate than older populations, Africa has a favorable demographic situation that predisposes it to tech mainstream adoption. All of the ingredients exist right now for an African blockchain revolution, one that can bring trillions in economic development and change the lives of billions. How will information mismanagement be eradicated by blockchain? Distributed ledger technology has the ability to transform the way information is spread and stored across Africa. For the last 2 centuries, colonial powers forcefully imposed their record-keeping systems and their institutions onto the native populations, all while purposefully misleading populations. Now that their grip has been lifted, many of these systems have stayed in place and simply been replaced by multinational corporations. Blockchain works by exposing the data and information publicly for everyone to read. No longer will there be dusty land deeds written on centuries old paper and forever trapping people in systems they cannot fight against. In this way, publicly verifiable records on the blockchain can begin to transform not only the economic systems with which we utilize, but it can now slowly begin to transform the psyche of the continent to begin trusting institutions again. What are some of the blockchain use cases in Africa you can comment on and share? Blockchain technologies can be successful in any country in Africa. The applications are tremendous and multifaceted. From tracking diamonds more efficiently and humanely, we can transform the trade in the Horn of Africa. Blockchain can also unleash a green power revolution through the construction of microgrids and their ability to decentralize electricity. In South Africa and Zimbabwe, we are seeing the development of blockchains to help Black farmers with supply chain economic solutions, which they historically were historically disenfranchised from. Is the use of phones and technology in general improving literacy rates in Africa? And if so, how? Absolutely. Access to mobile technology is significantly increasing literacy rates across Africa, especially the traditionally underserved communities in rural Africa. In the same way that readers across the world are increasingly leaving behind paper books and picking up tablet technology for their reading, we are seeing the same transformation in Africa. From 2017 to 2018, there was a 37% increase in the amount of hours Africans read ebooks, totaling over 4 million hours of reading books. Literacy rates are a result of access to text. Mobile phones and tablet technology are an extension of the written word, so they are aiding in the improvement of literacy rates. Interesting. Wasn't that long ago that someone came on here and said the literacy rates were 2%. What collaborations need to happen to bring transformational infrastructure to Africa? In order to bring about the benefits that benefits that blockchain can unleash for Africa, there does need to be rapid and radical infrastructure development across the continent. Firstly, there needs to be a focus on decentralized electrical grids. Look at the June 2019 blackouts over South America, plunging 48 million people into darkness, or the very recent UK national grid failure, which left 1 million without power. Centralized utilities do not make sense and should not be replicated in Africa, where renewable energy solutions and their distributions can be developed in a far better way. The partnerships that would be critical here would be the utility companies partner with renewable energy companies to create localized grids that do not span the entire continent. Clean water telecommunication facilities also need to be incorporated into this infrastructure development, as the blockchain revolution will be led by people accessing it through mobile devices. One key trend you have identified in regards to the economic growth from blockchain technology. Sub-Saharan Africa has more mobile money accounts than anywhere else in the world, with about 396 million registered users at the end of 2018. That's a lot of people. A 14% increase from a year earlier, according to the GSM Association. The lack of fungible fiat currency in traditional banking networks was quickly identified by Facebook-led Libra Group as an opportunity for crypto to bank the unbanked. Whether the authorities will allow Libra to do this remains to be seen. In any event, no continent is more ready to accept and handle a multi-digital currency wallet economy than Africa. So I think this is pretty good. I think you hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of areas that are basically analog and came from the colonialist era that should, by and large, resolve a lot of these issues that plague the continent. But I also think that it's a great use case for, people here in this country, right? If you look at predominantly Black areas that suffer from poverty or impoverished areas, you can actually bring on a lot of, you can actually leverage digital transformation to actually solve quite a bit of their issues. One of the use cases would be something like HIV and STD outbreaks in some of these predominantly Black areas. You can actually leverage blockchain and heat maps to identify real time based on people's patient movements within a certain region, in a certain city, in a certain town, a certain zip code. You can actually map that stuff in real time, and you can see all your use cases happening in near real time, I should say. So, I mean, obviously you wouldn't see a person move from block A to block B, but you would actually see in this region, based on registered users, based on the blockchain itself, the ongoing updating through the nodes, what's happening in terms of registered users with certain STD cases, high impact, socially impacting cases. So you can you can start comparing some of these areas, things such as public transit. When does the bus come? When does the train come? Is the train coming? Is the train going? Is the bus coming? Is the bus going? Is it delayed? Is it not? Things like that could actually be updated in real time on blockchain. So you're not waiting out there in the freezing cold or in the pouring rain or in the blistering hot sun because of climate change. Again, climate change can actually be mapped and updated through distributed ledger technology. Because we know that predominantly Black areas tend to be 5 to 10 degrees hotter than their non-white neighborhoods. And that's mostly due to the fact that there's a lack of green in the area. And the environment itself, the infrastructure itself is absorbing a lot of the heat, not to mention the amount of pollution that is combined with it. So climate change impacts them, but how do you address it? You address it through digital transformation, things such as blockchain. Yeah, the articles in the description beneath the video. So another idea is how do you address some of the other pervading issues in the neighborhood, neighborhoods where you live. Again, pollution. Another one, using IoT and having sensors set up that can update in real time and put it on a blockchain and make it publicly available. That's another way of doing it. You can get all this information in real time on your device. Tell you how great the pollution levels are, regardless if they changed or not. Another area is land deeds. I mean, land deeds, as basic as they sound, actually putting those on a blockchain actually makes sense, making it publicly available and actually secure. That way there's no manipulation because it's immutable. Polling. Something as simple as polling in voting, democracy would actually allow people to vote on issues in the local area and store all those the results on the blockchain itself. So that way no one can ever tamper with it, and you can know in real time who's actually voting. We talk about streaming money. A lot of predominantly Black areas have very small, what we call micro businesses. So I know in some cities you need a panhandler's license to actually operate street carts and things like that. Hand-to-hand money, at some point, cash is going to go away. Physical cash is going to go away. I can't remember the last time I even carried cash around. Everybody I know, barbers and stores, they all use some form of point of sale system or cash out. Streaming money means as soon as both of our phones touch with each other, as soon as we get a handshake, that's a fair deal. So we can negotiate that in real time. Another area of application would be things such as attendance in school and things like that. How do you know what the enrollment is if it's not publicly available? You have to jump through hoops and go through City Hall just to get those records. Well, putting that stuff on a blockchain is actually going to make a lot more sense. It makes it easily accessible and put it in real time. Let me add one more area. Let me see what's being said in the chat. Thai City says U.S. and France made a digital tax agreement today. Yeah, that was bound to happen. Europeans taxing American tech companies. That's what's going on. I would also say that I would also say that you can actually create a public banking system through a distributed ledger technology. You don't really need a big physical bank. I mean, that stuff can be done in lines of code now. So the idea of having this big, massive bank, like a Bank of America or something like that, that's almost dead. In, brick and mortars are almost on their way out the door, so to speak. So you probably won't see them in the next 10 to 15 years. I think a lot of them are going to close up shop. I know Bank of America has closed several hundred of their branches. No need to have them open. People just do their business online, especially from their phones. And so because of that, a public banking system would actually allow more democracy in economics in some of these economically black areas. You can come up with better mechanisms of how you can acquire land and stave off gentrification through land trusts. But all that can be put onto the blockchain in real time, be made publicly available. So these are the sort of applications that can actually be, ledgered out. Even something as minor as pet ownership, pit bulls, Rottweilers, sort of these sort of aggressive pets that Black people tend to own. Are you trying to say something, Cocaine?
No, that's okay.
And so these sort of aggressive animals get stolen all the time, especially as puppies. One way that they typically do it is through chipping. But what happens if you put that chip in the dog and actually put it onto a blockchain and have it massively available through a publicly available blockchain? Be kind of hard to actually get that that pet to be registered in any other state if it's already chipped and put on the blockchain itself. A dog tag, maybe 20 years ago might have made sense, but today a chip in it makes a lot more sense too. So I think that there's a variety of ways that you can go about this, but you have to look at each and every environment that that you reside in. Every environment is proprietary because different cities, different states, different regions have unique set of issues, and digital transformation would need to be applicable based on the conditions of that environment itself.
No, I was just going to make a joke. I was saying if you wear a wig and you live in a windy city, you can, tag your wig in case a good whiff of wind comes and blows it off, you lose it, then, you can find it on blockchain.
So yeah, those are the many areas, man. I think that there's probably about a dozen that I can come up with off the top of my head that could actually address issues, not just here, but in other places as well. I think it's kind of universal that evictions and things of that nature. You can actually create heat maps and things like that, make things publicly available to see things in real time, how people are being gentrified out of their neighborhoods and how you can actually stave it off. Because if it's publicly available, that can hurt politicians, because politicians who city council members and mayors and governors and stuff like that can be predicated on their next campaign. So we need to, look at the technology and how it can enable and transform a lot of these environments. The continent shouldn't be the only ones looking at this type of stuff. All right, that's it for me. And make sure you hit the like button as you, if you have not already done so. Share the video if possible. Docket and description beneath the video for you to follow along with. If you're trying to get into IT for the first time, we do offer IT mentorship. If you are in one IT role trying to transition to another, we do offer IT coaching. If you have any questions about a resume or cover letter and salary negotiations, we do offer advice in that area. If you are in the tri-state area and you're trying to get into IT through contracting, the Golden 11 does have recs on the table. All right, hold up, everyone.